Hello and welcome to Citation Needed, the podcast where we choose a subject, read a single article about it on Wikipedia, and pretend we're experts. This is the internet, and that's how it works now. I'm Noah, and I'm going to be leading this autopsy, but I'll need other people to do all the gross parts. First up, two men who were able to procure a body for this bit way too quickly and with way too few questions, Cecil and Tom.
I'm basically Harvey Keitel's character from Pulp Fiction, except I'm cleaning up after Tom. That's my whole job.
Hey,
Right, you got one client.
That guy shouldn't have stepped in front of me at the airport.
What, there's one at the
That was his
airport
fault.
now?
That's
Fuck.
And also joining us tonight, two men who refuse to stop jumping rope with the small intestines and won't share, Eli and Heath.
It's called a high-intensity workout, Noah, and it's the future of exercise.
Thank you.
Thank
Hit
you.
Training, exactly. Grab
double
the
dutch, double dutch.
double dutch.
And of course, before we get started, we should thank
Doesn't
our
it make
patrons.
sense that the two of us would do?
Yeah, right.
Stupid.
The third person is the
Patrons-
person with the intestines. It's
There
coming out
we
of their
go.
body.
Right,
and they're
yeah,
holding
it's
it. There you
anchored.
go.
It's
Yeah,
anchored.
no, yep, it did
Yeah.
make sense.
No,
Thank you.
Yeah, right.
Cecil.
Yeah, oh, there
Anchor
you go.
point.
Yeah. So, patrons, without you, Cecil would have to think shit like that up for way more nefarious reasons. If you want to learn how to join their ranks, be sure to stick around till the end of the show. And with that out of the way, tell us, Tom, what person, place, thing, concept, phenomenon, or event will we be talking about today?
All right, today we will be talking about unusual deaths.
All right, and Eli, you made it almost a year before returning to this. Well, again, good for you.
Okay, you can call me out when we've dealt with the fucking ice climber twins over here, okay?
Okay.
Fair enough. Fair
Different
enough.
stories. Different
He just
people.
wants to end the sketch every paragraph.
All right,
That's fine.
yeah, that's it. That's it. So, are you ready to laugh at the face of death once more?
I sure am, Noah. Starting with an event that could be a whole episode of our podcast.
But now it won't.
But now won't
Yep.
be. You're welcome, fellow castmates. The Thanksgiving Day disaster of the 29th of November, 1900. Quote, during the 1900, the big game American football match between the California Golden Bears and the Stanford Cardinal in San Francisco, which, side note, sounds like me making fun of what Cecil and Heath and Noah sound like before the record rather than an actual sporting event that happened.
Okay, yeah. Sports are dumb. Pretending to know Proust is amazing and relatable. Just do the show.
Guys, Eli's mom wrote him a note. He doesn't have to talk about sports for the rest of class, okay?
Thank you. Susceptible to colds. Quote, a large crowd of people who did not want to pay the $1, equivalent to $37 in 2023, admission fee gathered upon the roof of a glass-blowing factory to watch for free. The roof collapsed, spilling many spectators onto a furnace. Of the hundreds
Jesus.
of people on the roof, at least 100 people fell 4 stories to the factory floor. 60 to 100 more people fell directly on top of the furnace, the surface temperature of which was estimated to be around 500 degrees Fahrenheit or
Jesus fuck.
260 degrees Celsius for you communists out there. Fuel pipes were severed as a result of the roof collapse, spraying many victims with scalding hot oil. The fuel also ignited, setting
my
many
God.
of the victims on fire. 23 people were killed.
Only 23?
Mhm. And
How was it only 23, Eli?
and over 100 more were injured. The disaster remains the deadliest accident in sporting event in U.S. history.
Turns out glass fuel is that hot. Okay. We know now.
Yeah, still weird that all the Jews called in sick that day to sports watching.
Yes.
True.
All right. Well, that might be the deadliest, but the worst disaster in American sports history is still the Bills' second half collapse in Super Bowl 28.
Yeah,
I think we can all
That's
agree.
fair. Stanton Walker was murdered by his friend, but somehow the dumbest lie in history has made it into the history books. So here it is. Quote, the 20-year-old was watching an amateur baseball game in Morristown, Ohio, with a friend on either side of him. One of the friends borrowed a knife from the other to sharpen his pencil as he was keeping score. And when he was finished, passed the knife to Walker to pass to the other friend. As Walker was holding the knife, a foul ball struck him in the hand and drove the knife into his chest, next
No,
to
it
his
didn't.
heart.
No, it
His
didn't.
friends asked if he was hurt, and he said, not much. But the wounds soon began to bleed heavily, and he died within minutes.
Okay, same thing actually happened to me, just without the knife and the dying.
That's the
pretty cool.
operative part of the story, though, Heath. So I'm sorry. Are you hurt is a weird response to a dude who just got stabbed in the chest, right?
No, I get it, though. My dad legitimately once put a nail through his thumb with a nail gun, and all I could think to ask when it happened was, are you okay? To which he said, nope.
Well, you
And
know
that was
what?
it.
Accurate.
Man, a few
Accurate.
words.
Oh my God, Heath, did you catch a foul ball on a Major League Baseball game? I did. Who said that? Yes, I did. It was amazing. It's very rare. And yes, I did at a Mets game. It was pretty cool. I had actually just switched
Very rare.
seats
It
with a
only
friend of
happens
mine, and he
several
was super
times a game.
mad because it would have hit him right in the chest. He would have got it.
Call me when you played
no.
Tevye as a freshman in high school.
Eli, were you in Fiddler?
I was
when you
the
were a
first.
Because that's the lead,
of
isn't
the
it?
show. Thank you.
That's got to be rare for a
Thank
freshman.
you. It's the first one ever.
Cool. Oh my
Holding
God,
each-
Eli, that's
Holding
amazing.
each other in the light here. We keep the podcast. I'm the essayist. We can keep this energy. They can't move. Usually one of them starts talking, but it could just be this now. The rest of the show. All right. If you think your parents.
We've both had orgasms.
We have. With women. Not at them. but
Together.
with them.
Oh,
And
yep,
together.
that too.
If you think your parents beat you over the head with the Bible, wait till you hear this next story. In 1903, an unidentified person was beaten to death with a Bible during a healing ceremony gone wrong in Honolulu, Hawaii. The victim, quote, was being treated for malaria when his family summoned a kahuna who decided he was possessed by devils and tried to exorcise the demons. The kahuna was charged with manslaughter. All right, podcast listener, are you ready to go? Yeah. Now let's talk about the death of Melissa M. Tiemann. Quote, the 50-year-old resident of Los Angeles.
Sorry,
Yeah,
early.
yeah.
You go.
The 50-year-old resident of Los Angeles fell from a streetcar and
Yeah. Was now the
too
time?
early. Too early. You'll know. You'll know.
Okay. All
Fell
right.
from a streetcar and struck the back of her head on the ground, driving the teeth of an aluminum comb she was wearing into her skull.
Yeah. Oh, now.
Yeah.
Sorry.
They all did it.
I
at
wanted
home.
no one to
They
do it.
did
Nobody-
it. This next one might be my favorite of the entire episode. The chief of the German Imperial Military Cabinet had Kaiser Wilhelm II and some buddies over on the night of November 14th, 1908, to watch him do ballet. That's right. You heard me. After his vigorous performance, shortly after his bow, the soldier collapsed and was pronounced dead at the scene.
Okay, that is a great. Thank you.
That's it, right? Get it?
Oh,
Okay,
yeah,
all right.
again.
That is a great final moment, though. Like you finish out your last moment on Earth, take a bow, all your friends clap for you. That's the way to go
Exactly.
out. That's it.
Exactly.
I always wanted that Lord of the Dance to go out like that. You know what I
Sure.
mean? But
A lot of people would like Michael Flatley
As long
to
as it
die.
ends,
Yeah.
Cecil. Yeah.
But what makes this story extra funny is that the court was actually already embroiled in a scandal about homosexual behavior. So the attendees covered up the circumstances of his death.
Make it look like he was doing something manly.
It literally, yes. Now,
Have him fight a bear. Throw him in a bear. We got any bears?
put him in a suit. Now, I swear I've done this next one before, but perhaps I've only been looking forward to it so much that I thought I did. George Spencer Millett was a 15-year-old office boy at the Metropolitan Life Building in New York City. According to Wikipedia, he was, quote, fleeing 6 young women stenographers at his workplace, intent on giving him kisses for his 15th birthday while carrying an ink eraser in his breast pocket. As the women moved in for their kisses, he fell forward and the eraser's point pierced his heart, killing him. End quote.
one Cupid just slaps the other Cupid. Make it an ink eraser. Real smart, Phil. You fucking idiot.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. How the fuck was it facing his heart in his breast pocket? That's crazy the way that's on him, right? How was he carrying it? Also, maybe we should stop erasing ink with a small sword in old times.
Agreed.
Trying to start an orgy with a child here. Fuck. It's really hard being Cupid and Eros.
Content warning for you here, Tom. King Alexander of Greece was assassinated by a monkey.
What?
This story comes from Royal Central. Quote, the story begins on the 2nd of October, 1920. King Alexander went for a walk with his dog in the private park belonging to the Tatoi estate outside of Athens. A monkey attacked His Majesty's dog, a German shepherd named Fritz. The monkey, of the breed Barbary macaw, belonged to someone who worked at the palace. When the king saw this, he ran forward to the fighting animals and tried to separate the two from each other. Then, and I had to check so many articles to make sure this is actually the story. Then
Two. It's no more than two.
another uninvolved monkey came along and bit Alexander on the leg and upper body several times.
I'm sorry, fucking King Alexander didn't have a monkey guy? He has to separate fighting monkeys himself? Fucking royalty's come a long way. I guarantee you that King Prince Charles has a guy whose whole job is to curtail simian mischief in his presence, right?
And in exchange,
And to brush their teeth.
yeah,
Yeah, right.
and in exchange, he was allowed to paint that insane painting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when the king's servants saw this, they came to his aid and managed to chase away the monkeys.
A little late.
Yeah. King Alexander had 2 deep bites that were cleansed, and he was sure that the injuries were not serious and did not want the information about the fight and attack to reach the public.
Okay, I told you guys, and I am serious about this. No monkey business.
There it is.
The damage was much more severe than King Alexander.
Tom had to deal with a lot of monkey
He really-
wrangling as
yeah,
a kid.
he did.
He's got a lot of trauma from that.
The damage was much more severe than King Alexander believed. The same evening, both bites were infected, and the king developed a serious infection. His Majesty's doctors considered amputating his leg, but none wished to take responsibility for this if it didn't solve the problem.
Okay, and it is 1920, so chances are pretty good it wouldn't have.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The situation worsened each day without the doctors doing anything special.
Let's see, has anyone told him to try losing 20 pounds? Maybe.
The infection spread
Sure he
throughout
did
the
eventually.
body, and sadly, it was no longer possible to save King Alexander by a simple amputation. It ended with the death of the king on the 25th of October, 23 days after the attack. Say what you will about fraudulent psychic mediums, but Thomas
I
Lynn
will.
Branford was committed to the bit. Quote, in an attempt to ascertain the existence of an afterlife, the spiritualist committed suicide by sealing his Detroit apartment, blowing out the pilot of his heater, and turning on the gas, dying of carbon monoxide poisoning.
I'm confused. He had a carbon monoxide burning furnace?
I was confused about that as well. And then I was like, is that what furnaces run on? I don't want
That
to
is
ask.
not what furnaces run on. You die of
Bradford,
hypoxia if that happens.
Bradford had intended to communicate his findings to fellow spiritualist Ruth Starkweather Doran. But some weeks after his death, the New York Times ran the article, Dead Spiritualist Silent.
Well, okay, but kind of fuck Ruth for not at least playing along, right?
Bad for
What
her.
are you going to
bitch.
check it?
Jesus,
Yeah.
man. You got
Just
a
lie.
fucking
You're
gold
already a
mine.
liar.
You got a gold mine there.
Yeah. If
This
you've
thing
ever
is
heard,
fucking gold, and I'm not giving it up for free.
if you've ever heard of the Mummy's Curse, it's probably because of George Herbert, the 5th Earl of Carnarvon, and financier of Howard Carter's search for Tutankhamun. He died after a mosquito bite, which he had cut while shaving and became infected.
Okay, I guess the curse of not having invented antibiotics yet is what he's
Yeah,
got.
exactly.
So
Mhm.
there's the mummy.
Frank Hayes was a 22-year-old jockey from Vermont who had a heart attack and died mid-race, collapsing on his horse. The horse still crossed the finish line first while carrying his dead body.
First.
All right, which means that either there's this super awkward conversation afterwards about whether that counts, or they already have a rule for that. Either way, I am intrigued by that story.
You know, 19.
I feel like that counts. right?
Old timey Heath runs up with his ticket. That fucking counts, man.
Fucking
That
counts,
definitely counts.
absolutely.
Was betting on the horse, motherfucker.
Here's another murder that old-timey people were too stupid and lazy to solve. Thornton Jones, a lawyer from Bangor, Gwynedd, Wales, who, quote, woke up to find that he had his throat slit. Motioning for a paper and pencil, he wrote, I dreamt that I had done it. I awoke to find it true, and died 80 minutes later. He had done it to himself, apparently, while unconscious. An inquest at Bangor delivered a verdict of suicide while temporarily insane.
You know, we laugh, but this is Tom's future of escalating alarm clocks.
That's true.
Yeah, actually, anything before 7 a.m., I'm now up to pepper spray into my open mouth.
Yeah,
That's
that's fair. That's fair.
where I'm at.
Playwright and novelist Arnold Bennett, who, sad to say, is probably best known for the absolute pounding he took from Virginia Woolf in the press.
Okay, boo, 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 modernism, boo.
Yeah. He
Shitty books. Exhausting.
he died of don't
Sound
tell-
and the Fury. Fuck you. Stream of consciousness. Get out of here. Unreadable.
Exact- Yeah. He died of don't
I
tell me
tried to
what.
read Mrs. Dalloway. Couldn't go a page.
It's okay.
I'm also dumb about
A
books. but,
single
like, whatever.
page? He just gave up.
Exhausting.
Okay. Best thing she wrote was her suicide note. And I don't mean that in the sense that I'm
Jesus.
glad
Oh my
she's
God.
dead. No, I
What?
mean that when you read Virginia Woolf's suicide note, you become whatever percentage more suicidal than you were before. You're like, you know what, Virginia? Great points. Anyways, no notes. He died. Read the note. You'll kill yourself.
Convincing.
Fill your pockets full of rocks. and
There are
walk into the
100 people
fucking
who
sea.
listen to
No
this
notes.
podcast. If you all listen to it and one of you reads that note, you're going out. I'm just saying. Anyways, he died of don't tell me what to do itis. The British novelist was dining in Paris with his partner, Dorothy. He drank 2 glasses of tap water during the meal, scoffing at Dorothy's claims that the water in Paris was not properly treated to be safe to drink. Within 2 days, he'd contracted typhoid fever and died 2 months later.
Ugh, those I told you so's must have been insufferable for 2 months. Ugh. God.
So, how you feeling? Apologize-y and almost deadsy? Huh?
And of course, what kind of citation needed essay would this be without some radiation poisoning? Enter Eben Byers. Quote, the American socialite and industrialist died after drinking excessive quantities of radium.
And that seems like any quantity of radium.
You would think that,
Right?
yeah. He had developed persistent pain after a fall in 1927, for which he was prescribed Radithor, a patent medicine that contained 1 microcurie each of the isotopes 226Ra and 228Ra. He drank a total of around 1,400 doses, which concentrated in his bones, continually irradiating him. By 1931, his bones were reportedly disintegrating and his jaw had been removed. He died the next year.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll tell you what, Death by Radiation is the big musical number on this podcast, which means we need an intermission, but we're going to be back in a bit after some apropos of nothing.
Ba-da-bum-bum-bum.
Oh, that's very good. I'm impressed.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you.
Dietrich? Dietrich?
He's dead, sir.
Oh, come on. You gotta be fucking kidding me.
It's all right, Your Majesty. I shall call the doctor.
No, don't call the doctor yet. We gotta fucking change this, right?
Change this, sir?
Yeah, this doesn't look good for the whole, the gay thing.
What?
He's wearing a tutu.
A traditional ballet uniform.
Whatever, just take him out of it. We'll say we were hunting or wrestling or something.
Sorry, you said wrestling, Your Highness?
Hunting, fine, hunting.
Oh, man, he's got a boner.
Oh, that's probably the heart attack, though, right?
I don't know, just put him in the hunting clothes.
I don't think he has hunting
Well, then
clothes,
put him back
sir.
in the tutu.
Traditional ballet uniform.
Whatever, put him in it, please.
Oh, okay. It's in the way.
What? What's in the way? What?
The boner. I can't get
Pull harder.
Here, I'll help.
Your Highness, I heard a commotion. Oh.
This is not what it looks like. Different.
You guys aren't dressing a dead guy in a tutu over his boner.
It's a traditional ballet
What is
uniform.
up with you, man?
I'm just saying words matter.
Just don't tell anybody.
I already texted 100 people.
Yep, that tracks.
This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. You know when you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself? Talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to TalkSpace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at TalkSpace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at TalkSpace.com.
And we're back. When we left off, people were dropping like flies. Eli, who's next?
Our next death is a great lesson that you got to be careful who you sass. Nicholas Comper was an aviator and aircraft designer who, on June 17th of 1939, was playing with fireworks in public. Now, our justice-minded listeners already know he deserves to die, but a passerby asked him what he was doing. Comper replied that he was an IRA terrorist planning to blow up Town Hall, and in 1939, that joke was actually way too soon, so the guy punched him in the head, which he hit on the curb and died.
Oh, Jesus.
Okay, that's so weird. That actually happened to alt-right citizen journalist Andy Ngo when he was covering a protest by the Antifa army. He got milkshaked with concrete. I read about this. And then he got punched to death. And then he wrote the article that I read about.
I remember that. Yeah. Thomas Mantell is the first person to die of a UFO sighting. Quote, the P-51 Mustang fighter pilot crashed while in pursuit of an unidentified flying object near Franklin, Kentucky. Officially, the object remains unidentified, though the most likely explanation was that it was a U.S. Skyhook balloon.
Yeah, well, yeah, they don't want to say because it's embarrassing when your fighter jets can't keep up with your balloons without crashing. Yeah.
Yeah, look, my daughter really loved balloons when she was little, but we didn't let her drive the car to chase them around, much less a fighter plane. So
Exactly, yeah. On July 2nd, 1951, Mary Reeser fell asleep while smoking and burned to death in an unfortunate incident that is far too common. But America has never seen a tragic death we haven't wanted to turn into something weird and sensational. Rumor quickly spread that she had spontaneously combusted, a topic probably worth its own essay. And the media quickly gave her the nickname, the Cinder Lady.
I like back in 1950, we were still like, yeah, humans can sometimes light themselves on fire like a pile of oily rags.
Right, yeah.
Exactly. So cops, who were apparently as good at solving murders then as they are now, sent her remains to the head of the FBI at the time, J. Edgar Hoover, with a note saying, quote, we request any information or theories that could explain how a human body could be so destroyed, and the fire confined to such a small area and so little damage done to the structure of the building, and the furniture in the room not even scorched or damaged by smoke, end quote. The FBI quickly returned with almost exact quote, the floor is cement and the chair is in the middle of the room, you idiots. This is why the communists are winning.
Dear FBI, any chance the floor was lava? Love, local cops. Let us know.
The parents in our audience are all too familiar with Margaret Weiss Brown, who wrote a children's book I could recite while being waterboarded. Good night, Moon. I should say, Brown is a fascinating character from literary history and probably worthy of her own essay as well.
Well, stop ruining so goddamn many essays. There's 3 now. You're just there, man.
No. Not only did she publish
Yes,
Gertrude
though.
Stein's only children's book, she was an outspoken feminist, openly bisexual, and she died the way she lived, fantastically. Here's the story as written in Thomas Nisley's Literary Almanac. Quote, though she was just 42, Margaret Weiss Brown had nearly 100 children's books to her name when she took ill while traveling in Europe. Treated for an ovarian cyst, she grew fond of the nuns in the hospital and, to show one how well she was doing before being released, kicked her foot high in the air from her hospital bed, dislodging a blood clot in her leg that quickly traveled to her brain and killed her.
Jesus.
This is how I'm going to die, but it's going to be an entire cheeseburger in the vein.
Yeah,
That's
right.
what I think.
Weird postscript to that story. She left all the royalties of her books to her 9-year-old neighbor, who spent the rest of his life blowing the money, committing crimes, and telling people that Brown was secretly his mother. She was not.
Well, then he wrote the best-selling kids book, Goodnight Trust Fund.
And look, I'm sorry, but if you give that trust fund of riches to a 4th grader and you don't expect them to turn into a Maserati driving cokehead, then you know nothing about the American dream.
She
Right?
did know nothing
I
about
don't
the
even want to be
dream, it's true.
American if that's not true. Come on.
Clarence Hudson and Eli Bosnick have one shared key philosophy. if you're going to kill yourself, you should do it in a way that's awesome. And that's
Okay.
exactly what Clarence did by making his own electric chair. Quote, clutched in his hand was a ground wire from a homemade electrical apparatus. Hudson's bare feet rested on a wet towel. Another wet towel was around his head. Pasted to each temple was a 25-cent piece.
We usually call those quarters, but sure.
I'm quoting from the newspaper at the time. And from each coin extended a wire to a homemade transformer. Police said the transformer was used to increase the voltage from a wall outlet. It was estimated that 1,000 volts shot through Hudson's body.
Okay. Do you think he used a chair from home or got a new one? I feel like he got a new one, right? It's a weird fucking trip to IKEA to pick that chair, but like, I think that's what he did.
Yeah, and they probably didn't have the right kind of.
He opens up the
Chair.
instructions. There's like a line drawing blob man with a hammer scratching his head and looking at other line drawing blob man whose eyeballs have started melting, you know.
Yeah, exactly. There's an Allen wrench in the socket. I feel like that's related to this death.
Now, this would be just another slightly grisly suicide, but if you've heard this story, it's probably because of professional liar and essay topic of his own already, Alex Jones, who has often used Hudson's story as proof of a secret cabal of pedophiles who either killed him for knowing too much or for being one of them. It depends on the day that Alex is telling the story.
It's weird for a conspiracy to kill you for being part of it, though, no?
Right? That sounds odd.
So work
Odd
against
part.
your greater goals.
Yeah. I'll let Wikipedia do the heavy lifting on these next three deaths. Quote, during the testing of an experimental nuclear reactor design in Arco, Idaho, 2 soldiers and a sailor were killed, but their deaths were not due to radiation poisoning. While trying to bring the reactor online, John A. Burns, pin in that for irony,
Well, unless he's going to be iced to death, it wouldn't be irony. Okay.
an army specialist, was supposed to pull a control
Now Eli
rod.
has to improvise something that's not Burns.
Yeah. Right.
Was supposed to pull a
Cold
control
fusion.
rod partway out by hand, but he pulled the rod out further than intended. The reactor instantly went critical, which flash boiled the water around the reactor. The force of the steam expanding lifted the entire reactor into the air about 2.77 meters. That's 9 feet 1 inches for you Americans in here. In what has been described as a water hammer-like effect.
I don't
Many
know what that is.
components
What is
Yeah,
a
what-
water
what-
hammer?
It's
Water
there's like a
hammer.
water hammer, but it's an effect like that.
You guys
Thank
know
you, Tom.
about
Thanks,
a
Tom.
water hammer?
Yes, I got
Withdrawn.
you guys.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thanks, T-Dog.
Maybe I do know what irony is because you guys don't know what a water hammer is.
And
know
you
what a
still
water
don't know what
hammer
irony
is?
is based on
Absolutely.
that.
Anyways, in what has been described very aproposly as a water hammer-like effect, many components were, ironically, even,
Holy apropos.
many components were thrown out of the top, one of which impaled Richard C. Legg, a Navy electrician's mate.
Now, for him in the
On the
arm,
leg.
that's irony.
Well,
Yeah.
the arm would have been ironic.
That would have been
yeah.
ironic. Thankfully.
Thank
Yeah.
you, yeah.
It lifted him from a catwalk and penetrated the ceiling, leaving him dangling.
Jesus
While the
Christ.
Yikes.
While the reactor was airborne, the radioactive steam escaped, spraying the room. The steam was so hot that Burns instantly died of severe burns.
Ice? No.
Apropos.
I almost
Okay.
had it.
Irony.
Fair.
Leroy McKinley suffered a head wound from which he died later that day. The steam left the bodies of all 3 men radioactive, so they were buried in lead coffins. Officials feared that moving them would risk spreading contamination among public roadways, so a graveyard was established in the desert only half a kilometer, or 0.31 miles, from the explosion. The graveyard is still monitored by the Environmental Protection Agency. The 3 remain the only human beings killed by a reactor explosion in the United States.
One of them turns to the other. How far should I pull this rod out? I don't know. A smidge? Maybe a smidge?
You, Cecil, just pull it out by hand a little bit. What the fuck's happening? The user manual for the nuclear reactor, it needs not to have, like hanging a painting on the wall. It's like that as like an instruction. What the fuck is happening?
History has some pretty bizarre dominoes. Dude grabs a sandwich at the right shop to console himself after a failed assassination attempt. We get World War I. Some children yell at Nicholas Christakis, and Cecil and I's best friendship is born.
It wasn't a
Stuff
snarky
like that.
email. It was not.
It was a start.
It wasn't.
And in the case of Echo Coley and Robert Walker, their death forever changed the civil rights movement. See, Cole and Walker were garbage men, but unluckily for them, they were black garbage men. And so when it started to rain during their shift, they weren't allowed into the sanitation building where they worked. So they settled down into the back of their truck instead. The truck malfunctioned and squooshed them. But this, in turn, caused a strike by the sanitation workers. A strike so prominent that they were visited by none other than Martin Luther King Jr., who was assassinated on his visit. And
Okay, I was about to ooh MLK, and then it's like, oh, he got assassinated right there. I'm gonna it's good. I didn't
I could
do
move
that.
that track in the edit, and then it seems like you're oohing the assassination. You got to be careful. And lest we end on a bummer note like that, I'll finish up this segment with the death of Basil Brown. Again, pinning that for irony. Quote, the 48-year-old health food advocate from Croydon, England, died from liver damage after he consumed 70 million units of vitamin A and around 10 U.S. gallons, or 38 liters, of carrot juice over 10 days,
Jesus.
turning his skin a bright yellow.
All right, that was irony. If you want to summarize what you've learned in one sentence, Eli, what would it be?
Nobody makes it out of life alive, Noah.
All right, and are you ready for the quiz?
Hit me, but not too hard.
Yeah,
All right,
bounce against
Eli.
the curb there.
Which of the following people should have died in a slapstick farce? A, the world's #1 ranked golfer, Scotty Scheffler, after pulling onto the sidewalk and trying to drive through a police investigation that was delaying his arrival at a golf course a little bit.
Jesus, what?
B, the cop who grabbed onto the side of Scheffler's car and got dragged for 30 feet, the cop thinking he could, I don't know, grind the SUV to a stop using his amazing arm strength somehow. C, the judge who somehow let Scheffler leave the courthouse minutes after being arrested for the, almost vehicular homicide, allowing Scheffler to still make his 10:08 tee time that morning. Or D, Scotty Scheffler dies again a second time for being a massive piece of shit.
I think it's secret answer E. Scotty Scheffler and I share a driving philosophy and a single heart.
Okay, I guess that's technically right also. Yes, correct.
Thank
It was C.
you.
It was
All right,
also D.
Eli. Eli, who's the most famous person to die by spontaneous combustion? A, J. Cole. B, Vic Flair. C, Richard Pryor. Or
Too
D,
soon.
Bernie Sanders.
Doubles
Gotta
on
go
each
with-
one. It's really good.
Yeah. Got to go with Bernie Sanders. Got to go with Bernie
Yeah.
Sanders.
All right, Eli, when polled, people often say they want to die in their sleep. Why is that? A, because they are boring. B, because they don't have close friends to battle to the death with while driving rented bulldozer.
Right.
C, yeah, you can really just rent a bulldozer. D, for real, to anyone, they'll just rent you a bulldozer right now. Or E, how are the streets not lined with blood-soaked bulldozers?
I'm going to go with secret answer F. Yes, Tom, I accept your invitation, but based on my triglycerides, we better hurry.
That sounds right.
Yeah, that worked.
Yep, that one is correct, which means that this week's winner is Eli.
Oh, all right. Let's return back to the frozen north next week with an essay from Tom.
All right, well, for Tom, Heath, Eli, and Cecil, I'm Noah. Thank you for hanging out with us today. We're going to be back next week, and by then, Tom will be an expert on something else. Between now and then, be sure to check us out on Cognitive Dissonance, God Awful Movies, Scathing Atheist, and a bunch more shit. And if you'd like to help keep this show going, you can make a per-episode donation at patreon.com/citationpod or leave us a 5-star review everywhere you can. And if you'd like to get in touch with us, check out past episodes, connect with us on social media, or check the show notes, be sure to check out citationpod.com.
Okay, so then as we were carrying the body down the stairs, I began to yawn. Just that happened. That yawn made me trip and fall forward onto the middle of the body.
Literally none of us believe
I'm saying
you, Your
what happened.
Highness.
Totally horked that dead dude's dong, man.
I fell whilst yawning.
You don't have a gag reflex either. That's so weird.
Irrelevant.